Good morning to our viewers, and thank you for joining us on Wednesday morning's edition of Breakfast Central. For the next 2 hours, as always, we bring you some of the major conversations happening here in Nigeria and in slightly in other parts of the continent. And also, welcome back to Olive. I am Osaogie Ogbawa.
Thank you very much. Really good to be back. Thank you for joining us. I am Olive Emodi, delighted to be back. Today, we're going to, of course, like Osaogie has mentioned, looking through some of the biggest political stories. And also to mention that if you'd like to be a part of the conversation, we open up the phone lines when we review the papers so you can get to call and react to any of the big stories that particularly catch your eye. Today, we're going to be looking at a few interesting stories, which we'll be sharing shortly. But we're starting off with something that has raised a lot of dust on social media, which is a bill that is allegedly being passed at the House of Representatives. It's a bill that, according to the Sun newspaper, it says reps seek 25-year jail term and 10 million naira fine for separatist agitators. Now, the name of the bill allegedly is Counter Subversion Bill 2024. And there have been several parts of the bill that Nigerians have found interesting and have started to kick against on social media. I'm going to read excerpts of the bill, and Osaogie and I will get to talk about it. It has said that the bill is sponsored by Tajuddin Abbas and is awaiting a second reading. Now, let's look at some of the sections. According to this article by the Sun newspaper, it says, Section 2, 5, 6, and 10 of the proposed legislation states that a person who engages in activities that results to mutual suspicion, mistrust, distrust, or intolerance which degenerates into conflict and violence that threatens the corporate existence, peace, and security of the Federation of Nigeria commits an offense and is liable on conviction to a 5 million naira or imprisonment or a term of 10 years or both. These are one of the things. But I think another thing that a number of people are arguing against or talking about would be a person who establishes, creates, operates, or maintains funds, supports or assists a paramilitary group, guard, brigade, organization, corps, union, militia, cult, or bandit group under whatever name or guise, except established by laws passed by the National Assembly or State House of Assembly, commits an offense and is liable on conviction to a fine of 10 million naira or 15 years imprisonment or both. Now, this particular section, Osaogie, talking about funds, creating or maintaining funds, how do you then decide? So if an organization says, I would imagine that this would be birthed as a result of what they have termed sponsors of protests. So maybe this might be aimed at curbing those who would give towards funding protests. We saw that the rise of that during the NSAS, where there were organizations, corporate organizations that were giving money and food to protesters. And now if you're saying that any organization that creates or operates or maintains funds or assists not just a paramilitary group, but in this case an organization, I'm sure that a number of civil organizations have found this as an attempt to stifle their ability to be able to, protest and sponsor protests, which is actually their fundamental rights. There's nothing outrightly, overtly criminal about that, because protesting is not a crime. As at now, in Nigeria, it is not a crime. It is when it then becomes violent, then they start to, look at the different colorings to that.
I mean, yeah, I agree. It is not a crime, but, what I think, might be going on here is, an attempt to scare, people away from being able to make use of their fundamental rights that is established by the Nigerian Constitution. I'm hoping that it will be challenged. It's been put forward by the Speaker, Tajuddin Abbas, who's from Zaria. But it's a House of Representatives that is meant to represent the interests of Nigerians, not stifle the interests of Nigerians. It's a House of Representatives that is also made up of politicians and political reps from different political parties, from the Labour Party, from the PDP, the NNPP, and of course the APC. And so, what I'm hoping is that there's going to be a proper debate. It's only been put forward. I think there's going to be a second hearing, a second debate, and they would be able to, deliberate on what the details of the bill are. So I'm hoping that there are members of the House of Representatives that will speak against it, and point out the many flaws in that, bill that make it look like, we're turning Nigeria into an authoritarian government. Because these type of things you would maybe only hear in places like Egypt or in Turkey or in Russia or in Thailand. These are some of the places that that insulting the president or insulting political leaders could land you in jail. But you would never expect that in Nigeria. Right. And it's interesting because, maybe 10 years ago, 12, 15 years ago, if anybody had told you while we were nurturing, the democracy that we currently are experiencing, even if some people would argue that this isn't a democracy, but while we were nurturing that democracy, if you had told Nigerians back then that we'll be having these type of conversations now about jail term or a huge fine for protesting or for speaking or for insulting political leaders, many people will say that that's not true. But what has happened is that the APC government in particular has done things that many Nigerians would have said many years ago that they can never do that. Nobody would have expected that they would break into the houses of judges, but they did it. Nobody would expect that 500 plus Nigerians would have been killed in Zaria, and the army would say it is self-defense. Right. But it did happen. And there's many things exactly.
So it's just a situation of you think it's not possible. You think it's just
until
noise,
it becomes real.
And then it actually happens. And I want to point out something here, which a number of Nigerians will frown upon, and I find quite interesting. It says, the bill states that any person who destroys national symbols, refuses to recite the national anthem and pledge, defaces a place of worship with the intent to cause violence, and subverts the federal government shall, on conviction, be liable to a fine of 5 million naira or 10 years imprisonment or both. And I want to talk about the refusing to recite the national anthem and, how that in a way also infringes on people's right to freedom of, association as provided for by the Constitution. There are certain religions in Nigeria that do not believe in singing the national anthem. For example, the Jehovah's Witnesses do not sing the national anthem last time I checked. And if you then say that you want to criminalize their refusal to sing the national anthem, is that not in a way also impeding on their own rights? Because who does their refusal to sing the national anthem
right to religious expression.
Their right to religious expression. Yeah. If they refuse to sing the national anthem, who is it hurting?
Yeah.
So I know this is also, if this is confirmed, this is also as a result of the brouhaha or the chaos that arose or that erupted as a result of the new national anthem and all the drama that ensued on social media. I
have, repeatedly spoken about, the APC government in particular and their seeming intolerance to criticism. We experience bits and pieces of this in the Buhari administration, and so it's nothing necessarily shocking. What Nigerians are really just, likely reacting to with this, if it is, confirmed, is, the fact that, you would expect that it will be bad, but you wouldn't think it will be this bad. And of course, this is not the way that a democracy works. And I want everyone to imagine that, the Goodluck Akpabio Jonathan government put these types of bills forward in 2010, 2011. You can just imagine the reaction that Nigerians would have gotten. And you remember very well the freedom to protest that Nigerians had in that time, to express themselves in any way, shape, or form, even if not necessarily violent protest, but at least the freedom to peacefully protest. That was that maybe was the last time that Nigerians truly had that ability to freely protest without the government feeling like it was an attack on them.
Isn't it not interesting that the people who are trying to stop others from protesting are the ones who were the chief champions of the protest during the Goodluck Akpabio Jonathan time? And
the statements that we've heard, even from Dele Alake yesterday, I believe, after the Council of State meeting, most of them keep describing the End Bad Governance protest as an attempt to overthrow government, as an attempt to remove the president from office. And it's the same thing that former President Buhari said during the End SARS protest. So it's the same reaction every time that there is a protest against, if aggrieved members of society come together, they always interpret it as an attempt to overthrow government. But we'll see. Like I said, there is, it's a House of Representatives that has different political parties and different members. We'll see.
I have to wait for them. We're hoping that they will come and highlight and shed more clarity on what is referred to as the Counter-Subversion Bill 2024, as reported by the Sun newspaper. Well, all right. Let's show what our top stories are this morning, and then we'll bring you breakfast headlines. President Tinubu okays 300% pay rise for judicial workers. This is good news for the judiciary, it seems. And federal government signs policy to retain medical experts in Nigeria. What is the mindset behind that? It's something we're going to be looking at shortly. NERC orders distos to buy power directly from GenCos. And away from that, we will be looking at motorists seeking government intervention on fuel scarcity. It would seem that it's starting to come up again in different parts of the country. The newspaper front pages will be reviewed, and we open the phone lines for you to join in. But now let's bring you breakfast headlines.
We begin the news in West Africa, Nigeria, where President Bola Tinubu on Tuesday presided over the first Council of State meeting of his administration, which included both physical and virtual participation. Attendees included Vice President Kashim Shettima, Senate President Godswill Akpabio, former Presidents Muhammadu Buhari and Goodluck Jonathan, who were physically present, while retired Generals Abdusalami Abubakar and Yakubu Gowon joined virtually. And the reinstated chairman of the All Progressives Congress in Rivers State, Emeka Bekele, has reaffirmed his leadership and announced the party's participation in the upcoming October local government elections. This directly contradicts the stance of his predecessor, Tony Okocha, who had challenged the polls in court. And also in the news, Speaker Emmanuel Emerua has finally inaugurated Aaron Uzodike as member representing Abia North State constituency, 8 months after the Independent National Electoral Commission presented him with his certificate of return as the duly elected lawmaker. The Court of Appeal has ruled, or had rather, ruled in favor of Uzodike in the People's Democratic Party, sacking Destiny Uwagu of the Labour Party since November 2023. To other parts of Africa now, Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko has paid a surprise visit to Mali, which recently cemented a breakaway union with fellow junta-led Sahel nations Niger and Burkina Faso. The trip is Sonko's first official visit to a country belonging to the Confederation of Sahel States, all of which are led by army strongmen who took power in coups. And now in the south of the continent, Lesotho has seen a rise in hunger among its populace due to severe drought, which has taken its toll on small-scale farmers. The drought that has been biting countries across southern Africa for months has left the land barren and bare. Malawi, Namibia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe have also declared disasters as the most severe El Nino-induced drought in a century scorches crops and fells livestock across the region. Also in the news, South Africa's jobless rate has risen to a near record in the second quarter of 2024, continuing a trend that has seen the number of unemployed people grow by more than 60% in 10 years, according to official data shown on Tuesday. The National Statistics Agency, Stats SA, says the unemployment rate hit 33.5% between April and June, up by 0.6 percentage points from the previous quarter. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. Let's move now back to Breakfast Central and get into our top stories. I am Osaugie Ogbawa.
Motorists in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, have expressed frustration over the unavailability of fuel and the hardship being experienced in trying to buy the product. They say the queues which resurfaced before the End Bad Governance protest have persisted and called for urgent intervention to cushion the effect of the hardship on many citizens. Our correspondent, Idong Joseph, spoke to some of them, and here's his report.
The resurfacing of fuel queues in Nigeria's capital a few weeks ago is gradually becoming a norm as motorists spend hours in long queues just to buy fuel. This experience for many motorists within the city center is also shared by those around the satellite communities where several productive hours are wasted on long queues, which impacts negatively on businesses.
It was yesterday. Somebody bashed my car on a fuel queue, and here I am again. I'm from the hospital.
I can't be here for over 2 hours trying to buy fuel and still yet nothing. I've not even bought fuel. I'm not even sure if I will still buy fuel.
I cannot really tell why we should have a product in the country and at the same time we are suffering.
With prices differing among the few petrol stations that have products to sell, some motorists say the situation is becoming unbearable for them. They call on the government to intervene and resolve the crisis.
Before I used to buy full tank, 9,500, I will fill my tank. But this, if I buy a full tank now, you have to be like 49,000, 50,000 naira. How much are they paying me? How much am I making? I will have to buy for 50,000 naira.
It has not been easy. You come to fuel station where you can walk to just in space of 5 minutes and you get what you want. But now you'll be there 1 hour, 2 hours.
We have individually spoken. People have been talking. last week we just concluded a nationwide protest, and yet we have not had anything reasonable from the president.
They also call on the government to address the hardship citizens face.
If you look at the way and manner people come out for the protest, you know definitely the situation is tough for everybody. We are appealing to the government that they should come to the rescue of the populace.
They should listen to the masses and see what the demand of the masses is. Then let them channel their effort towards that.
While many players in the oil value chain have blamed the End Bad Governance protest for being responsible for the long queues, many will be hoping that with the protest now over, motorists can move into petrol stations and get products freely. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idonk Joseph.
It would seem that the plight of fuel scarcity is now one that has in a way come to stay in Nigeria. This morning on our way to work, I was complaining about how I had started to see fuel queues at different filling stations in Lagos, only to get to work now and see that we have a report by Idonk Joseph that the same thing is happening in Abuja. And then I looked on X, I checked the number of the tweets that I saw, and the number of the tweets were of people saying, I can't believe that fuel scarcity has come to stay. Someone even said, so if we've just accepted that fuel scarcity is a part of our life here in Nigeria. If this isn't state capture, I don't know what is. Nigerians are groaning. People are buying products. Apparently, someone on Twitter said that, or on X, Twitter, that they bought the product for 800 naira per liter. So you have to buy that expensive. You don't have enough money to buy. Even when you have the money to buy the product, to get the product is torture. Is this
very painful.
Can we ever get a break?
It's very painful. Yeah, I mean, and these are, I mean, we could have this conversation, you know, it feels like a mirror conversation from 1996 or from 2001. We've been complaining about petrol scarcity. Nigerians have been complaining about these petrol scarcity for at least 20 years. The same thing, the same questions that are being asked. And there's almost nothing that has been done considerably that you can say, okay, this new administration came into office and, you know, put plans in place to ensure that we no longer have petrol scarcity. I mean, just before we came on air, I was even saying to myself, well, I feel bad for people in the FCT. I didn't even know it has gone to Lagos. Yes. I was initially saying in my head that, oh, why is the FCT always suffering petrol scarcity? It's been like this for a couple of years now, that even when the rest of the country has petrol, the FCT just doesn't have. But now, of course, it's back in Lagos, and you would have to buy that expensive petrol for maybe 800 naira, maybe 750 naira per liter, and still wouldn't even find it to buy. It breaks my heart every single time that I drive by a petrol station, and you can see the faces in these petrol stations. Listen, there's no matter what political party that you support, no matter, you know, who you want to be president or governor or whatnot, the frustration is the exact same thing on every face you see in the petrol stations. Listen, just go to any petrol station when there's petrol scarcity. The frustration is the same thing on every face that you see. And I remember there was the time I was in Victoria Island trying to get petrol for, you know, with someone. And my heart was bleeding just looking at the faces that I was seeing. And I was saying to myself that Nigerians don't deserve this.
No, we do not deserve this. I mean, it's such a tough sport right now to be a Nigerian. It feels like it's suffering Olympics that Nigerians are experiencing at this point. Every Eke market day, there's fuel scarcity. The other day I was talking about how a number of us, and this is me making it more personal, those of us who live in self-service apartments where you have to buy your fuel to power your generator, during fuel scarcity periods, you are just so sad because, you know, it's almost like it's planned where when there's fuel scarcity, shortly after, there'll be power problems. So you barely have power. So not only do you not have power, you don't have fuel. And if you need to get that fuel to power your house, you have to go and queue in the fuel. You're waking up at odd hours to be able to make it to work. So it just feels like everything is ganging up to make life hard for Nigerians. Now, even when you now say, okay, for someone who says, you know what, I don't want to put myself in this kind of situation. I don't want to have to worry about fuel for my home, to run my home at least. Let me move to an estate where there's service, you know, they handle the service. You go there and you see the cost of rent. I wanted to ask if you've seen the cost of rent lately.
I have. The reason you're even talking about this, you know, is because,
and that's even,
you know,
mine.
Yeah, the reason you're even describing a story like that is because the power situation in Nigeria, has been accepted to be the way that it is. And that's why we even talk about generators. There are many neighboring African countries that you don't even hear the idea of a generator. It's not part of their lives, it's not normal for them, for every home to have a generator, but it's normal for us here. But again, my point is that for decades, we've still not gotten a government into office in Nigeria that can say, okay, we're going to fix the problem with Nigeria's petroleum industry. One government.
If we find that one government, just to let them know that if we ever find the government that will fix Nigeria's petroleum challenges with Nigeria's power sector, you will not need to campaign. Nigerians will vote for you. So when Nigerians are complaining and you then find ways, governments and politicians find ways to lobby and cut corners, it's because they know they're not doing the job and they don't have enough to be able to campaign for them. But all right. Let's keep talking about this, and we'll continue the conversations much later. The headline highlights, we're looking at hiking emoluments, and the headline highlights the significant increase in salaries and emoluments for judicial officers, with a focus on the Chief Justice of Nigeria and other top judiciary officials. President Bola Tinubu has signed into law a bill increasing the salaries, allowances, and benefits of Nigerian judicial officers by 300%.
The Chief Justice of Nigeria will earn 64 million naira annually, while the President of the Court of Appeal and Justice of the Supreme Court will earn 62.4 million naira and 61.4 million naira respectively. The National Assembly passed the bill in June, and the President Tinubu's assent marks a major milestone in his administration's efforts to prioritize workers' welfare, according to the government. The bill aims to promote the integrity of the justice system and set a standard for Nigerian workers. Joining us is legal practitioner Aaron Uzodike. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
All right. Is this good news? Is there celebration across, the whole legal space in Nigeria? Is everyone celebrating?
Not exactly. Our problem is not about hiking salary or emolument. I don't think it's a solution. I don't think it's a solution, because when you increase the salary and the economy is still battered, you are still going to battle with further inflation. And inflation, as we have it at 33.9% or thereabouts, you are increasing salary without a serious work on the economy to make it deliver on the promises of democracy. You are still going nowhere. So what will happen is that the moment this is implemented, which it has been passed, it's been signed, upon implementation, the prices of things will move up further. Then those whose salary have been increased will have to adjust to that. And by the way, why should this increase of 300% be only for the judiciary? I know that for the civil service generally, there's an increase in the minimum wage to 70,000 naira. But the judiciary sector has been singled out for this 300%. What exactly is the benefit? Why single out the judiciary for this? Is it to compensate the judiciary for the many crimes the politicians have committed by destroying our judiciary, or to compensate them for corruption or for further issues that is before the politician, head of the politician, as it relates to maybe the next election and all that.
When you talk about
this government,
Mr. Fraley, when you talk about the politicians destroying the judiciary, what do you mean by that? And aren't these judges and members of the judiciary also culpable?
The judiciary have allowed itself to be used in a way that have not promoted democracy. Now look at the last general elections and look at the outcome, where the judiciary came up and gave a judgment that where a law empowers INEC to come up with a regulation, then it is INEC's prerogative to use the regulation during some of the elections and discard the regulation for some of the elections in the same election year. And the judiciary said that was okay. That is wrong. That's very wrong. I have a PhD in law, and I'm going to tell you that whenever the law, okay, empowers you to do an act as a commission, that act, okay, when you come up with that regulation, bringing out from that empowerment of the Constitution, that regulation becomes binding on you and the society. So it is wrong for the Supreme Court to have told us that INEC is not bound by its own regulation. And that is quite very wrong. And I'm saying that if we want to promote the independence of the judiciary, we have to do it in a way that you give them remuneration and give them independence. The politicians should stop infiltrating the judiciary, giving them gratification to change the course of the law, because that is dangerous. That is how I see it. I am not going to celebrate this increment in any kind of salary.
Okay.
Because it looks to me like it's gratification.
All right. Evans, to speak about the independence of the judiciary, you're highlighting the independence of the judiciary, and I want us to speak a little about that. You said that if we're going to effect independence of the judiciary, we need to be able to restrict the, in other words, the interaction of politicians with, the officers of the court. Is it just when it comes to remuneration, or also from the appointments? Because we know that whilst the NJC has its role to play, the president, the executive, does also have a role to play in assenting to the appointment of the judges. So do you maybe think that that's another aspect to look at? Is that a standpoint you might consider if we're looking at the total independence of the judiciary?
It's a whole lot. It's a whole lot. The recruitment of the judges and the judicial officer, okay, their appointment, which is usually confirmed by the NJC. Okay, those who are appointed, and they are appointed on the basis of merit. The last appointment we had, we saw how that substantially and ostensibly children of judges and relatives of judges were the one who made it up to the list. Those who do not really know people do not clinch the list just because you have corruption and corruptive tendency. And the judiciary is a special arm of government because you are supposed to attain whatever you are attained there by professional elevation. And it counts you cannot become a Supreme Court judge if you have not practiced law for 15 years, for example. You cannot become a High Court judge if you have not practiced law for 10 years. Even when you have practiced law for 10 years and 15 years respectively, you still do not qualify until your record shows so, until you display some level of extraordinary ability in the legal profession. So all that have been put aside. Then politicians are now the ones, we look at them celebrating the ascent of the president, the 300% hike emolument, celebrating it and jumping all over the place. Was that what they did when the president signed other bills into law? When the president signed the 70,000 naira for minimum wage, the politicians, were they all there clapping and jubilating? Why do they have to assemble for the judiciary like this? I mean, I don't know whether you guys are seeing what I'm saying.
I mean, you make a strong point. It's not common to see.
I'm not happy about this.
Yeah.
I'm not happy about this. I'm ready to say the truth. Whatever it is you want to do to me thereafter is a business. Why are they jubilating over this?
Yeah.
Is it because the judiciary, the politician suddenly now loves the judicial worker?
Well, the narrative.
Why have we not?
The narrative is, that this shows, President Tinubu's interest in the welfare of the Nigerian worker, but of course, this is particularly the judiciary here. But you do make a strong point, with the questions you're raising as to why they are so, happy about it. What is there to celebrate, with this? But I also want to point something out. If you remember, the NBS, National Bureau of Statistics, did put out a report sometime this year in 2023, sharing that Nigerian judges and magistrates received the highest amount of bribes among public officials in 2023, surpassing even police and customs and military personnel, which it's entirely shocking to hear. But does an increment in salaries maybe then mean that you would have less of these bribery in the judiciary?
It's improbable. It's improbable. A corruptive mind or a corrupted mind may not be assuaged by 300%, by 300% increment in salary. I say may because one who have discarded the calling of his profession, a noble profession, and I've set it aside to collect gratification, to twist the law and to change the course of jurisprudence. I do not think a 300% increment in his salary or whatever can assuage his contempt or can assuage his greed and erase, his unprofessionalism. I don't think so, in my opinion. So I think what we need, because the judiciary is the only thing left. The politicians have destroyed every other thing. And now they are swimming into the judiciary, and we have allowed them to come take residence here. They know now that the people no longer determine who wins election. They know. The politicians are crafty and very proactive. They know that the electoral system is battered. They have destroyed that one completely. So they know that the only institution left that can, stop you or allow you as a politician with your corrupt tendencies and all that is the judiciary. So now they are throwing a tea party for the judiciary. Okay? Buying them over indirectly. Using gratification indirectly to promote contempt. And then turn around to say there is a love that they have for the judiciary, which just happened suddenly. That is why they have, that's why they are doing what they're doing. The judiciary can decide whether you become a president or not. The judiciary can actually look strictly to the law and deliver judgment on the merits that will affect someone. Right. So that institution is sacred, or is supposed to be sacred, and should not be allowed. This, in fact, this increment on the scale of things, the judiciary is supposed to reject it. Supposed to reject it and ask questions. Why do you single us out for 300% increment?
What would you have? Are you completely against the increase of the judges' remuneration, or are you against the fact that it was as high as 300%? As you answer that, I am against
the intention. I do not trust the intention.
Okay, you don't want the increment at all. I do
not trust it. Not that I don't want the increment. I don't trust the intention.
Okay.
I'm not saying the judges should not be paid well.
I ask this because for the longest time, judges have, there's been conversations about how judges have not been adequately remunerated. I'm not quite sure now if it was the Attorney General of the Federation or the Chief Justice, but one of the two of them had said that, part of the effect of this is the fact that, if we don't increase their salaries, we're going to see that it would affect poor dispensation of justice. And that's not to in any way excuse bribery and corruption. But Nigeria has fallen on hard times. So are we saying that the government should not have in any way increased, regardless of what the intention is? These people need to survive. The judges need to survive. They need to be able to make ends meet.
They need to increase. They ought to increase. But I'm saying, what's the party for? They need to increase. They need to make judges comfortable. I mean, you don't get me wrong. The public should not get me wrong. I'm not advocating against the salary of judges and the judicial workers. Of course, I couldn't have done that because I also want to see them live well, to be able to do their jobs well, and to be able to be productive in the scheme of things. But what I'm saying is that it looks like a jamboree. I mean, why are the politicians celebrating it? Why are they all over the place for the judiciary suddenly? So that is my worry.
All right.
Otherwise, I will promote a judicial system where judges will be very well paid so that at least you can sway them away from the temptation of fleshing gratification. Okay? And then they are given a very robust package. That is fine. But when it becomes the Senate president is jubilating, the president is jubilating, and the even polling parties more than the judiciary itself. So
well, maybe they were all just, in a happy mood yesterday. But I don't know if you've also seen, before we go, I'm not sure if you've seen the alleged bill by Speaker Tajuddin Abbas that looks like, might be an attempt to stifle opposition and protest. I'm not sure if you've seen it yet. The one that criminalizes protest to some extent, and of course, criminalizes insulting the president and the political leaders,
and religious leaders as well.
Yeah, criminalizing persons not singing the new national anthem. Have you seen that?
Well, I have not seen that, but what I know is that freedom of expression is guaranteed by the Constitution. Even though it's not absolute, it's guaranteed. As long as your expression is within the bounds of law, there's no part of the law that says you should not abuse the president. Morally speaking, you shouldn't, but no law says so. Let the president sue you for defamation or whatsoever it is. You cannot criminalize an act of expression just because you're a lawmaker today, or you make an attempt to stifle freedom of speech or liberty or movement. And protest itself cannot be criminalized because it's part of democracy. Protest made it into the Bill of Rights as far back as 1223. Okay, then so you cannot get a law that will not bring protest to a halt because people must, if you are governing well, they will have no need to protest.
I mean,
if you are not governing them well, you are filtering their resources and you don't want them to protest. That wouldn't work.
Right. These are just for now. These are claims for now. The only paper we currently have the report by the Sun newspaper, and we're hoping that we'll get more information. It's called, according to the Sun newspaper, it's the Counter Subversion Bill 2024. And we hope that we can get a clearer picture, and maybe they can come out to tell us that it was a misunderstanding or misrepresentation of some sort, because Nigerians are not finding it funny. Evan Sofeli, thank you for joining us. We look forward to having you again.
You're welcome.
All right. And now we move from the justice sector to the health sector. But we'll come back after this break to talk about the work that the federal government is doing in addressing the Japa syndrome. Stay with us. It will seem that the federal government of Nigeria is addressing the Japa syndrome in the health sector. The government has launched a new healthcare policy that is aimed at transforming the country's healthcare system and addressing the severe shortage of health workers. According to Nigeria's Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Muhammadu, key aspects of the policy include regular reviews of working conditions, emphasis on digital health infrastructure, capacity building through continuous professional development, and simplified registration processes to encourage the return of Nigerian health professionals from abroad.
The policy comes as Nigeria faces a critical shortage of doctors and health workers, with only 55,000 licensed doctors serving a population of over 200 million people.
Joining us is the National Vice President, Nigerian Medical Association, Dr. Benjamin Olowo-Jebutu. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Olive. How are you today?
I'm very well. And how are you? I should ask you, are you excited by this? Is this Uhuru? Is this something that the Nigerian Medical Association is thrilled to hear?
Finally, I think they're listening to us now. But it's not just writing the papers now, it's now implementing them to be sure that is a true reflection of what government really wants to do. Because, in this country, we like to pay lip services, we like to talk. And for me, it's about maybe like verbosity. We just talk it about how do we now do it. It's very important. There are no timelines to it. They've not said this is the timeline for implementation. Are you going to coordinate with local government, with state government? Because most times when you drive visions from the point of federal government, it doesn't cascade down to both other killers of government, basically. So But it looks good because I read the policies over the night because I was coming here today.
Ah, brilliant.
56 pages. Looks like it was detailed work. Looks like it was researched. But we've not talked about implementation, accountability. Who are those that would do this? Who are those that would do this part of it? Who's responsible for the research? Who's responsible for the working conditions? Who's responsible for the mentorship? So those things are very, very important going forward to ensure who to ask questions from. You know,
what are some of the things that will genuinely reduce the interest of Nigerians and Nigerian doctors, Nigerian healthcare workers living in the country? What are some of the details that you've seen in this proposal now that, you know, if they truly implement, any doctor who's, you know, currently in Ibadan, planning to go to Canada next year is going to say, now stay back.
So I saw the part that says constant review of remuneration. That sounds very good, because one of the basic things that have discouraged doctors to stay back in this country is the kind of work we do and the kind of remuneration we get as per the kind of work we do. So WHO says one doctor to 600 patients. Or in Nigeria, we have one doctor to 10,000 patients. That's amazing. So you have doctors dying. You have doctors overburdened, you know, work stress is there. Somebody has hypertension, has kidney disease, you know, not lost the kidneys. 7 people, you know. So if the working conditions are improved on, and the younger doctors, you coordinate their working hours. I give very small advice. I said a few weeks ago, I was talking to some of the CEOs. I said, if, for example, before you used to have 10,000 people in a clinic that was run by 10 doctors every day, and the doctors are reduced to 5 doctors, what you should do as a CEO is to tell the patient or the public that, sorry, we can't do 10,000 patients again because we now have 5 doctors. Let's reduce to 5,000, and you cascade out that come to the clinic. But you know what they still do in the hospitals? They still maintain the 10,000 patients to be seen by these 5 doctors. Yeah. So there's overburden, people fall ill, there's no proper infrastructure to support what they're doing. And you don't feel encouraged. So you are tired every day going to work, you are tired, you're not enthusiastic to see the patient.
Is this more in the private health sector, the private spaces?
No, everywhere. It's everywhere. It's even more in the public sector.
Right.
Because the private sector usually attracts doctors by remuneration and says, okay, come, we'll pay you more, we'll give you accommodation, you can stay in the hospital, you know, that they make it more attractive. But if there's a benchmark of remuneration and says, this is what you will get. You get a car loan, 1-digit loan to get a facility support for your hospital or for your career. You get house loan. You get your children go to proper school. There's a rebate on their school fees. You know, you can go out at night. The security is checked. You don't get maimed. Yeah. Let me give you a scenario, my brother. A doctor in Ebonyi had done multiple CS over the night because there was emergency. Hardworking guy, passionate, but died in the morning. Yes, he didn't wake up. So he worked hard. And how do you incentivize doctors that have died in active service? What happens to their family?
Do we have some form of life, insurance for them?
No, we don't.
Okay.
But I want to also ask, you know, this bill we're talking about now, we're talking, you know, just doctors or, you know, healthcare workers?
Healthcare workers generally, but I speak for doctors, lab scientists, everything. But the ministry covers everybody. I don't speak for doctors because I know where they should, I know where they should hurt us, and obviously everybody is affected. You know, the amount of nurses that live in the country to the UK because of their aging population, and you know, obviously they don't like to do medicine in those places because they like fintechs, they like technology. So they poach our people because we are ready to move, same environment, more money, more avenue to improve your skills and use what you know to affect people. A lot of doctors live in Nigeria to go and study abroad with their own personal resources, and when they come back home, the tools to work are not available. So I like the fact about it says the continuous professional education. That means government will be sponsoring talent and says, okay, go study this part of medicine abroad and come back and deliver to our citizens. So it makes a lot of sense.
Seeing as you speak for doctors, give us a picture of what the current reality is. When you say, because we've been talking about the salaries and the remuneration of doctors. How bad is it?
Very bad. So before subsidy, doctors that earn $1,000, he makes money. You've made money. But now that there's a lot of inflation, the $1,000 is like making nothing. I think the enabling environment is not enabling enough for people to try. Doctors have, somebody sent me a message yesterday and says he's frustrated. He doesn't even know why he's a doctor. He can't even read books anymore. That he has a young wife. He can't feed the wife properly. Medical doctor, young doctor. So I was pained. Okay, so if he says to you, he says leaving the country, I don't have any justification to say don't go. But the reason why we have stayed back, because we believe that we have a role to play in shaping the face of the healthcare. And we cannot stop talking about it. One day the government will hear. Now you've heard this one. I'm glad that they're thinking about it holistically, that what affects the doctors, not just remuneration, working hours, job satisfaction, security, improved knowledge, improved seeking more advanced knowledge outside the country and be able to come back. And those that are outside the country having seamless in-route to come back to the country and help the country. But one thing must also do is that the climate and the working condition in this country must be changed. It must be changed. People must feel good to go to work every morning. And say, okay, and I like the fact they talked about this rural allowance. So we have two kinds of japa in this country. Yeah. There's a rural to urban japa. There's a urban outside japa. So people leave, as I said, leave the rural communities and come into Lagos, cities, yes. Come to the city, make a couple of money for a few months, save, do exams, and leave. So if we now incentivize and say, okay, if you stay in a rural community, you are the doctor affecting this people. Let's pay you some kind of allowance to stay there. Let's support what you do. Give you infrastructural benefit, support your system, support your hospital, give you medications, give you, I believe the government is already talking about having local production of drugs, generics, that we're not just waiting on importing all the drugs, they're increasing duties for it and making it expensive. Because now, if somebody with hypertension that is taking drugs before, every month, maybe for 5,000 naira, every month, as the drug for monthly, is not 25,000 naira.
Even 40.
Even 40.
Yeah.
That's for the patient.
Yeah.
So it's important, it's holistic. So as we are addressing healthcare, as we're addressing the healthcare professionals, you are addressing the system that makes the environment awesome for patients also to seek healthcare.
Yeah. I think it's also important to mention, that the Japa syndrome is not just affecting doctors. It's people from everywhere.
Yes.
And also, it's not simply because of poor pay. It's a general feel about Nigeria and where Nigeria is and where Nigeria is going.
Yes.
For a lot of people, an increase in salary wouldn't, solve that problem. But I also want to ask, the NMA has had its back and forth with the Nigerian government multiple times.
Yes.
Failed promises, new agreements are signed, NMA threatened strike again a couple of months later. What do you think is going to be different this time?
So we have a very, very focused president now, Professor Bola Tinubu. He's a technocrat, an administrator. I think he understands the language of negotiating, back and forth, be able to. So what the thing I realize about government now is that when you negotiate, you must give a very superior argument that is realistic, that is seeable, that is, you can see it, that if you don't do this, I give you a very small scenario. You want to increase the IGR of a hospital. You have 10 urologists that does amazing surgeries, and one of them give you an income of 10 million naira a month. That is 10 will give you 10 million naira. If you lose 5 of them, you lose 5 million. So what will make you keep them is tell them, increase capacity. What do you need to make the work better for you? Who are they accountable to? So for me, it's not only money, not only salaries.
Yep.
The working condition, the instruments to work the attitude of work,
Right.
the love of the country. Health is a right. I get my point. So the country must show leadership. Government should show that we want to solve this problem truthfully, not lip service.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Why do you trust them? Because we still 2024's budget, for healthcare is not very different from 2023.
I didn't say we trust them. I said government must make us trust them.
Okay.
Because we've lost trust in government for a long time. Can I give a very small story? So, commerce salary was increased last year. From January till now, we've not gotten the commerce areas. Doctors, now there's now increase in minimum wage. So there will not be consequential adjustment again. Now we are waiting for when that will happen again. So when you say you've promised this salary package for doctors, for healthcare workers, just do it. There's no point promising. I'm not going to do it.
Are there any other things that they can maybe mimic or policies they can adopt from other countries?
It's simple. When our senior colleagues, when I finished medicine, back in the days, in the late 70s, early 80s, very, 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 very close to 90s. As you finish medical school, you have a flat waiting for you, one of the low-cost houses in the state, and a small car. With that one, you already feel good as a doctor that, all this my stress, I went through medical school, this is my reading multiple books, big books, it didn't go in vain. That means I am appreciated. What is making a lot of doctors feel pain is that we don't feel appreciated in this country. Can I shock you? A doctor has been kidnapped in Kaduna for the past 3 months. We've not found her. Nobody's talking about it. A doctor was maimed in Enugu going to work. No government even says sorry to the families. So they failed us. So what makes you feel good going to work that you think you can be kidnapped, or you can be kidnapped on the road, or you can be maimed?
I mean, these are such sad stories that you've talked about, but the current reality that we're facing in Nigeria as Nigerians is that for a while we'll have to have a number of these challenges. So this policy, is it enough to cause the impact that the government is expecting?
When is the policy starting? First question.
Valid question.
Who is accountable for the policies? What are the cadres? What are the timelines? Excellent policies. In Nigeria, we like to write books. It's very good. But how do we implement them? My joy before was that local government now has autonomy. Yeah? Yeah. Says you have, but are we sure that they understand what autonomy means? The local government people. Which means we have 774 local governments in this country. Yeah. And they are responsible for the primary health care centers in the country. So who will now tell them what they need to do in primary health care centers? Who are they accountable to? All they want was autonomy. But who are they answerable to, the governors or the federal government? We don't know.
They know their responsibility. And again, so these things, like you've said, it's interesting on paper, but if we don't see that there's a change in what our annual budget is for health, then these things aren't really achievable.
Correct.
Because they need to invest more in healthcare. The things that you're complaining about, the equipment for work, your working conditions, of course, and this is public and private hospitals as well. If you don't see that there's now better funding, then this is all just talk.
Right.
So you now have younger colleagues in secondary school asking them about mentorship. I'm sure you read about the Prime Minister of England bringing the teens to come and do medicine, because people don't want to do medicine anymore.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we pray it doesn't go to extinction, because now there is no mentorship. Nobody sees who they want to be like anymore.
Right.
Because it's not what they want to just see.
It's no longer what it used to be.
Growing up, when they ask young people, what do you want to be? I want to be a doctor.
I remember that. I'm a doctor in my country. I sound like somebody wrong. But now I don't know.
Everybody knows me well.
I think it's a good opportunity to once again remind the Lagos State government of the doctor who died in the elevator.
Yes, I was about to ask if anything was Dr. Viry.
Yes. We've asked, I was chairman of NMA at that time before I became manager. So we've asked them, one, they need to obviously immortalize her, name that being after her. They're doing a lot. They're doing some innovation in the place right now. But it's beyond that. It's about having an emergency response properly, documented, having people be able to know what they need to do when there's a problem like this. who are accountable? Do we know those that have been that caused the challenges before? Have they been prosecuted? What are their names? Have we named them? Do we know them?
And can we ensure that this will not happen again?
Yes.
I mean, these are the conversations.
Those are the things we need to talk about. So it's not just writing stuff. I'm just saying a lot of stories about who is accountable to the people. Last thing, please. We must show love. One of the things we've lacked in this country as government is no love. Love is the only thing that will show that you can't sleep on two beds at the same time. And you must see your next neighbor as yourself. So if you're going to provide healthcare, provide healthcare. If you won't, don't. Because you know that if you have a headache, you take taxpayers' money and travel abroad.
Well, anyway, this is really conversations that we can't exhaust today. Dr. Benjamin Olowojebutu, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Look forward to having you again. Let's take you through a recap of the conversations we've had so far and share with you some of the conversations still to come. So far, we've had conversations on President Tinubu okaying 300% pay rise for judicial workers. Evans Upeli joined us to analyze that story. We've also looked at the federal government signing policy to retain medical experts in Nigeria. We just concluded that conversation. And we had a report talking about motorists seeking government intervention on fuel scarcity. Now let's share with you what's coming up next on Breakfast Central.
Coming up next, NERC orders Discos to buy power directly from Gencos. And also the newspaper front pages. What are the major stories making headlines across Nigeria this morning? We'll also be sharing with you our quick monologue, Which Way Nigeria? And now it's time to get to the newspapers and share with you the major stories making headlines across Nigeria this morning. We have joining us public affairs analyst Razak Olokoba. Good morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's kick off with the Punch newspapers this morning. Share with you what we can find. Big one on your screen says federal government blocks 83 billion naira protest funds. Arrests political collaborators. Government uncovers $50 million crypto funds. Blocks 4 digital wallets containing $38 million. Police to declare foreign agents wanted. Traces 4 billion naira to Kano, Abuja, Katsina political bigwigs. EFCC donates 50 billion naira crime proceeds to NEL Fund. We can also find NNPC Limited postpones Port Harcourt refinery kickoff for the 6th time, as expected. Should have written that. Should have added that to the headline. As expected, NNPC postpones Port Harcourt refinery kickoff time for the 6th time.
It was supposed to be at the end of August.
Yes.
We've been doing the countdown, thinking, okay, August is almost coming to an end.
4.2 trillion naira foreign MOUs signed under Tinubu says a report. And federal government unveils plans to bring back 12,400 JAPA doctors. Just a few other stories. TUC backs $5 million monthly pay for judges. 16 confirmed dead in Oyo multiple crashes. And NJC to select Ariwola successor on Friday. Those are the stories that we can find on the Punch newspapers. This Nigeria newspaper comes up next.
All right, and on This Nigeria, protest was plot to topple Tinubu, ex-presidents declare. Buhari, Jonathan, Abdulsalami Gowon rally behind current administration. Obasanjo, Babangida absent at Council of State meeting. Who knows why? Stakeholders urge tax waiver for manufacturing sector. Yaba Psychiatric Hospital seeks help for abandoned indigent patients. That's a very interesting, sad story. President signs 300% pay rise bill for judicial officers. Yearning of officers met, says Attorney General of the Federation. Windfall tax, excessive burden, bank directors cry out. That's all on This Nigeria newspaper. And let's move over to the next paper. That is the Daily Independent.
Just quickly on the Daily Independent. Go on, Abdulsalami, Jonathan, Buhari decry protest, regime change. Pass vote of confidence on Tinubu at the Council of State meeting. NSA reassures nobody will truncate hard-earned democracy. Wait till 2027 election, federal government tells President Tinubu's opponents. It doesn't seem like they had a lot of conversations on the welfare of the Nigerian people and how we maybe can improve on the quality of lives of the Nigerian people. Most of the conversations or the reports from this Council of State meeting seems to be all about the protest. That's very telling. Tinubu signs bill increasing salaries of judicial officers by 300%. We can also find here again, stakeholders urge upward review of tariff for telcos survival. Court extends order restricting Abuja protesters to MKO Stadium. Afenifere declines call for military coup, seeks support for democracy. Kyari urges military to sustain onslaught against crude oil theft. Let's just quickly bring in Mr. Lokoba. I'm going to start, obviously, with the Council of State meeting with Mr. President. Like I said, most of the conversations from it, even if you read the statement from Dele Alake, one of the things that he spoke about 80% of the time in his speech was, how the protest was meant to topple the government and, kick out President Tinubu, which is pretty similar to what we heard at the end of the NSAS protest from President Buhari. It was meant to overthrow government, that and all of that. They've also then claimed that they found 83 billion naira protest funds and they've arrested political collaborators. Quickly share your thoughts on this.
When eminent Nigerians like that gather, you should be bothered. And we have to take it serious.
Isn't that a normal, Council of State meeting?
No, when gather to discuss security issues, they gather to discuss other issues. But when they gather to discuss security issues, it should be a concern for you. And I don't see reason why people like this will cover lies. Either in government or outside government, they will receive their own report one way or the other, which means they also have an inkling with what government has done. And if they don't agree with it, they will have spoken out that I don't think so. So, democracies and governance, the protection, it should be paramount with us. People pay a lot of prices to bring out democracy. And that is why, at all times, anything you want to do, your motive and intention must be very, very clear. There are people who genuinely felt that there's need to protest from August 1st to 10th. But there are people who also have motive. I have a problem with people who understand that it's only people who have genuine intention and there are no motives to it. I have a problem with that kind of thought because from some of us who opposed the pattern of the protest, of course, you are right, there are people who are due genuinely. But when you see people running away from taking responsibility, which me and you always argue over, that most protests have leadership, this is what it will lead to. When you don't clearly state what you are meant to do. The United Nations recognized non-state actors. Shortly after the Second World War, there's what is called balance of power, where no country should be allowed to be more powerful than the other and commit to what Germany has done. So they recognize the non-state actors. And non-state actors, there's a rule of engagement that has been established. And that's what I'm trying to tell you, that there are rules that you must engage your government. If you fall outside that rule, don't take your case to United Nations, you will not win. That's why SAT cannot go to United Nations. There must be clear objective of what you stand for, so that when something goes wrong, you explain, this is our mission. This is what we told you we intend to do. That one is not us. So the leadership should be able to quickly declare that day that the people raising that flag, they are not part of us. So we'll be able to separate them. But it was lumped together. The protesters with genuine intention, who just want to send a message to the president, they lumped them together. And the whole essence of protest has been lost now, as far as I'm concerned, because nobody will not pay attention to this. Yeah. Humanitarian crisis in Nigeria is not going to disrupt Africa. It's going to disrupt the entire world, and that's why you see everybody paying attention to Nigeria.
Do you think Nigerian leaders are so concerned about this humanitarian crisis, with the way that they also have handled Nigerians themselves, and the way that they've governed
from 1990 date of this specific government?
From 1990 date, and of course mostly this particular government, because the reality of Nigerians and the economy, has been worse with the APC government in particular.
Well, but that's the angle to which you are seeing it. This morning, I saw figures that were read out about people who benefited from the loan given to students. But the way you speak and people share your thoughts speak is that, in fact, this government is not even paying salary. That is the description I see people give it to this government. That's the description, that the not paying attention to the demands of people. Salary has just been increased, though. And I'm aware also that the farmers are getting loans.
Yeah.
So some of those things many things that Tinubu read out when he addressed, I'm not aware. And that is the concern I have with his own government, too, that they don't talk. They keep quiet. When there seems to be progress, people share thought to me, leave you to it and say, no, something is working. But when people feel that nothing is happening,
the numbers
of people who keep increasing, who don't like this government will keep increasing. If you don't tell the world what you are doing. So first, the government needs to talk more. All these issues now.
This is what I'm.
We want this
to
be declassified.
This is what I'm pointing out.
This should be declassified.
You can point
people
out
behind it so that.
Kindly hold on.
Let me quickly say this, please. Okay. So that it will be clear to you that it's not a permutation to also douse all this.
So would you agree with anybody? Would you agree with anybody who says that this is a fake story? If the government doesn't go ahead and expose these people that they've claimed to be collaborators and sponsors of the protest, the people who funded the protest, a 3 billion naira, if the current government doesn't expose them, and next week somebody says, well, the government was lying,
as an expert, I will say that it's going to increase the number of people that will say government is lying. So my advice to the government is that there must be consequence. People should be brought on board. People should be tried. We want evidence. See, government is not a secret court.
Would you?
No.
Who would say
no, I won't.
Right,
because
so
you can't joke with this kind of national issues.
Okay,
right. Before you
to
gentlemen go on, I just also want to bring in our audience to let our viewers know that if you'd like to be a part of the conversation, the phone lines are open. You can call in and react to any of the stories. Mr. Akpabio, you had said that the government should declassify this. So I want to imagine that what you mean by them declassifying this would be to name names.
Yes.
But do you have,
we need names.
Do you have faith in the current administration to actually name names? Because over time, there are usually speculations about certain things, protest sponsors. Before now, there have been several speculations, really.
But they are not speculations. Because for me, as someone who has been protesting for a long time,
so what I'm talking about is like to follow through the process, to name names, to bring before a court of competent jurisdiction. Do you trust that this current administration will
It's not only about this group. That's the concern I have. Since 1990 date, maybe it's an inheritance from the military era. There are things. You asked me a question about NLC, police, saga, and I said, why will police not come out to say that we are the one that was behind the raid or whatever they call it? Why will you not speak up? Then two days later they did, and it became an altercation. Then, and they should write specific, make it a formal letter to NLC that we didn't come to your office. This is what, with evidence. See, if you run government this way, doubt will no longer be as much as it is now. So this one, I completely agree with you. But it's not only Tinubu's administration that has this kind of challenge. From Obasanjo to date, so they classify certain thing that is needless.
And whilst I can agree with
completely needless.
Whilst I can agree with you, I think our focus now will be on our current administration, because we cannot go back to Obasanjo's time and tell Obasanjo you should have done this. It wouldn't amount to anything. The only person we can have.
That's what I'm saying. Is that we need information. We should not leave it to. We voted for you, and it's not a family affair. It's a public affair. More so, it's going to assist a lot of Nigerians who have not taken decision yet about the protest, whether it's sponsored or not. So if there are more and more evidence,
what about you?
I've taken the decision that it is a correct.
All right, let's take the call from Alhaji Lawal before we continue. Good morning, Alhaji Lawal. Thanks for calling. Please go ahead with your comment.
Yeah, good morning, please.
Please turn on the volume of your TV set so we can go ahead with the conversation.
Yeah, good morning, please. I like what you people are doing.
You're going to have to call us back. Just to reiterate again to our viewers who want to be a part of the conversation, the numbers to call are on your TV screen. Before you call, please turn down the volume of your TV set, or else you might have to disconnect because it affects the conversation. You were going to ask.
Yeah, I was going to ask. You mentioned, that the Council of State members, very likely received security reports, and that's why they all, showed up and, had similar views. Do you think from President Olusegun Obasanjo and Ibrahim Babangida received similar reports?
No, of course. For Babangida, he may have his own reasons for not coming, which I don't think is ulterior. But for Obasanjo's not coming, we know that Obasanjo and Buhari almost don't see, and Tinubu almost don't see eye to eye. And on matters like issues like this, we have seen vituperations from Obasanjo towards any other government apart from his government. So he may be beginning to have problem with Obasanjo's government too. It's not going to be a surprise. He wrote a very lengthy letter to Jonathan. He wrote to so if he begins to have problem with Tinubu too, it's not going to be a surprise. So They will have security report. They will have, as a former head of state. In fact, you don't need to be
So
a
you
former
think
head
that
of state.
former President Obasanjo has also seen that there were plans to topple the government and, he has, chosen to not support the Tinubu administration?
No, what I mean is that there is, for not attending, he will have received the report, but for not attending the meeting, President Obasanjo just say a way of doing things. The best administration is his own administration. We have personal accountability.
Maybe if you look at
his assessment of Muritala's government.
If you look at statistics,
several before he even became the civilian president, we have had altercation several times.
If you look at statistics, it truly was, the best that we can refer to.
All right.
The what?
The Obasanjo government.
Before you respond to Osaugi, let's hear from Alhaji Lawal. He's called
It's
back.
not just him.
Good morning, Alhaji
Lawal. Template for
Lawal.
where we find ourselves today.
Yeah, please go ahead. Oh no, you can't do this again, Mr. Alhaji Lawal.
Was Occupy Nigeria meant to overthrow the government?
No, this is the last one.
No,
Occupy Nigeria in 2012.
Was that meant to overthrow the government?
No. You know that Occupy Nigeria is a good example of what protest is all about. There were leadership.
So,
and the moment,
who were the leaders of the Occupy
Nigeria? I want the leaders of the protest.
You are not.
Yes. you didn't go and follow the trend
please.
No, go and follow the leadership trend. The people are assigned roles.
How many leaders did
people are assigned roles.
How many leaders?
The role as a leader that I'm assigned, I'm head of mobilization for
how many leaders?
So Bakari is the spokesperson and Odumaki for all was the spokesperson. There are people who are in charge of a protocol. So we went organized. And on the 7th day, it was the 7th day that shook the world. On the 7th day, we had to call it off because there were infiltrations. In fact, many fraternities were coming there that you allow one fraternity to speak on the stage, you didn't allow to speak. So, and our point has been made. The president has had us. That before you know it, the subsidy decision was reversed. So that is a good example of what protest is all about. And on the 4th and the 5th, we started receiving reports that we were taking money from opposition so we were not bad at because we didn't behave like such. We didn't encourage people to burn property. I was not on radio to say that I speak extensively on the protest.
So what's the difference between the reports that they claimed that they received then and these reports now?
No, if there are certain indices in a protest, you begin to discuss and you begin to draw conclusions. One of the indices is that people who are not supposed to be part of your protest begin to join it.
All right.
Begin to join infiltration. There were instances of clash. You move on this.
We have a call. Let's take this call. We have a call coming in. Good morning. Thanks for calling. Please go ahead.
A very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Ham is my name. Calling from Lekki, Lagos.
All right.
Want to go ahead?
Actually, in respect to, I so much love your studio, and I so much love your news station, because I'm so sorry for diverging from this, but I just love this station simply because of one thing that you guys did. I started following you, visiting Plateau State about the crisis that have been bedeviling us for years. But the young man there in the studio, I think I am of the new opinion that all the leaders that we have right now are not worth. We know the fountain of knowledge in Nigeria, the Yorubas, have it all. But are you telling me, Socrates said that the worst of us rule the best of us. I am of the new breed. You can see that all our leaders, you can see they have been recycling themselves. I am of the belief that we need new people. Even about protests, I was here during the NSAS. I took part in the NSAS protest. And you can see how effective it has been in the north. I am from North Central, but the reason why it is even so strong in the north is because the Fulani have lost out in power. They have lost out of power. And because the fact that they've lost out of power, they have been inciting young Hausa people. But all of us, you and I, know that the majority of the population of Nigeria is the Hausas that owns it, while the Fulani are minority. We in the middle belt, the Benue, Plateau, Nasarawa, Adamawa, Taraba, and the rest of them are minorities. Right? But we still manage ourselves. So I believe the new leaders, we need people who are so passionate about this country. We have so much solid minerals in this country. I wish one day you guys can do a program about it. In Kaudan, Kaduna, Plateau. Do you know there's a mining team in Jos in 1910?
All right.
The World War II that was fought. Most of the solid minerals that they did, it was from Jos, Plateau State. Go and check it. You can Google it. It is there. when
All right.
we've been contributing to Her Majesty, the Queen of England. So people should be allowed to protest, please. People should be allowed. I see one of your presenters who was harassed on the street.
All right, we have to interrupt now, please, because of time. Thank you so much for calling, and we hope that you keep following us. Thank you very much. I want us to touch on another story because we've settled on this for a little too long. Yaba Psychiatric Hospital seeks help for abandoned indigent patients. I think that this is an important conversation to have. We understand how things are right now, how the country is right now, and if the average person can't even afford to pay medical bills, we don't even have as much priority placed on mental health because we can't afford it. Mental health is very expensive. So now, as things are getting worse for the average everyday person, the psychiatric hospital is getting the hit. How does this information come across to you, and this administration, and how well can they combat this?
Well, the personal advice I have for people is for to brace up for the picture of things to do. I've been saying this from day one, that in 3, 6, or 1 year, it's not going to be a do. I've not changed my position about that. So, if you want to receive a blow as a fighter and you brace up for it, the effect will not be much. Things will not be rosy this year. It won't be rosy early next year.
When will they start to be rosy?
And what I mean is that the repair is going on. The repair is going on. For this political structure in country today, that any president at all can locomote Nigeria for 1 year, I give him kudos. But it can't take us far. The other caller says something very, very fundamental, and don't brush it away. The important of it is that Nigerians don't want to be ruled by proxy again. Concentration of power at the center will keep bringing crisis for us. Let people go at the pace they want to go. They congest the center. Devolution of power is the way out. See, all these issues we're talking about economy is because the concern of Nigerians is that we are going to Abuja, we are going to meet the Mr. President. It's him that can sort out everything. And Obasanjo you mentioned, it's because Obasanjo, okay, did you not praise military when Obasanjo was there? I remember very, very well that in the media, everybody was saying that military era was better than Obasanjo era. Immediately he left, people started praising Obasanjo over Jonathan.
Everybody said the military era was better than Obasanjo.
Yes, when it was concerned, it's one time, things are not getting better. Things are not getting better. Generally, we define to general because the moment a government comes in, people don't prepare their mind that there will be that period for the government to concentrate and begin to do the needful. What they want is immediate solution. And we don't structure our country in a way that there can be immediate result. The way we structure Nigeria, where the economic power is in the hand of federal government, we can't prosper like that. You kept saying this, and the rest of the world are bothered about that. And that's why anybody who is protesting, who is talking about insecurity, and it's not specific to say that the reason why insecurity is that the security layer of this country is what is wrong. We have 200 million policemen in Nigeria. During with time, all of them are not up to half a million. And you want security. You want 200,000 people to secure 250 million Nigerians without asking the governor. The governors are sabotaging the president. They sabotage Obasanjo against state police. They sabotage Jonathan. They did for Buhari. So this time around again.
Let me understand something. Whose responsibility should it be to improve on the police force? Improve on the number of police officers, improve on the equipment that they have, improve on funding for police.
The president is supposed to be funding, the federal government is supposed to be funding. But
okay, so if he goes
the layer,
but hold on.
What the federal government should do?
Just hold on. If the president stays in office for 4 years and there's no change,
there can't be change with this political structure.
Why can't there be change?
The number of security agents that the federal government is supposed to have has been exhausted already. It's normal.
What is the number that is?
It's normal. The number that we are supposed to have now, which is 500,000 for the total security package, is enough. What we need is a complementary role from the state. And you're not looking in that direction. What the federal government is doing it already. You can't place what the federal government can do at their doorstep. They can't secure the taxing state of the federation. And the governors, because of the Herculean task of having a state police, they are sabotaging the president. They did it for Buhari, they did it for Jonathan. And they have started again now. We've been calling for it. And our guy is running away from it.
Yeah, we have a call from Akpo, I believe. Good morning, Akpo. Please go ahead.
All right.
So the mental health of Nigerians, my advice is that they should raise it up. But the preservation is very, very, very important. Then when you have too much and high expectation, it leads to depression. So for me, I'm not a medical expert, but I live my life based on what as it emerges. And
so that means
we should try as much.
Things to get better.
We should try.
No hope for things to get better.
It's not that there's no hope. That things can get better immediately. That's what I'm saying.
So
part of the minute I'm saying that is now.
Okay, so at what point do we then start to say things can get better? Because now it's 1 year plus, right? At what point will things start?
So you don't remember
better?
what I told you last time we met? I think the experience is 2 years. And from last year till now, we've seen the things that President have mentioned that he has done.
All right.
Already so that getting low now.
Hold on, we'll come back to that. We have Akpo still on, calling. Please go ahead with your comment.
Hello.
Hello, yes, please, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank God for you, a beautiful lady and a handsome man given by God to add on this program. In fact, I'm somebody above 75. For a young man like that, coming to analyze the issue of Nigeria at this stage, it's not a welcome person. Because what is going on in Nigeria today, cannot just say 1 year. It's a continued government of APC. What is it defend? It's only coming there to defend what is benefiting from the government. People there are sacrificing your life to say the truth every day to the youth. How can the youth come out on a massive level trying to defend what is benefiting from the government? Everybody knows that everything is bad. APC is a continuous government, not Tinubu say you just enter for 1 year. No! Nigeria cannot accept it. We have to change the decision, change the policies. What we need now, action. What is the action? Let the fuel come down to 200 naira. You see that everything's changed. Not increasing some people's salary, doing that. So what they have, Buhari administration started. Cities on children, they say, let's go government school children, they feed them. But today we have more private schools. Are those children not Nigerians? In fact, they are ready for what would benefit all Nigerians to certify few people. And that's what this man is defending his own. Never invite this type of person to the public. He's the public. He's starting the youth.
Thank you very much. Share my view. If that's not your own view, I've developed this scheme for this kind of thing. I'm expressing an expert opinion. Fuel can never come to 200 naira. I don't want to expect you to come. See, I'm not a young man who, like I said, I'm not a boy who, I'm a man, I'm a full grown man, well above 50. So, and I've contributed 35 years of my life to advocacy, engagement, and struggle for this country. So, if I share a difficult view now that you don't agree with, that doesn't take it away that I'm not honorable. I know what I'm saying. Yeah, Nigeria just want the easy way out. There's no easy way out.
We need to go.
That's difficult. There's no easy way out.
I just want to ask, in your view, since 1999, what would you say has been Nigeria's best government?
There's been no best government since 1999. There's been no best government since 1999.
So which one has been the worst?
Which has been the worst? No, given the political structure in the country today now, I've said that every administration has done their best.
In all the best that they've all done, which one would you say?
If a driver is driving a very educative vehicle, you must praise him. If a driver is driving a very educative vehicle.
So that means, in your view, all our past presidents have done a good job.
With this political structure, yes.
They've all done a good job.
This political structure, yes. I don't expect them to go this far.
Yeah, but I mean, if you would rate the quality of life for Nigerians in any of these governments, and which would you say gave Nigeria a really good time? A reasonably fair time.
Instead of dissipating energy to talk about these issues, why can't you repair your car? You can't be blaming your president.
But
I just want to know who would you think has been Nigeria's fairest president? Let me not say best president, fairest.
No. Is it an assessment to... Because you have to be specific on what you are talking about.
Quality of life.
Quality of life.
Yes. Nigeria's economy,
the quality
in every way. Human Development Index, every way.
Yeah.
See,
imagine.
I gave all of them kudos because...
You're trying to be politically correct.
I'm not political because if you have 10 drivers that drive a educative vehicle, you have to tell them that for a mechanic will tell you this car. So as an expert on political issues, on political structure, I study this. So
that means
I acquire academic knowledge. About
we have to get out of the studio now because we have to move to the next.
So this structure is rickety.
All right.
It's not the blame of any president.
And
until you repair it. You know, I'm telling the president you think I love to this too. That I can't go anywhere with this structure. So if I'm coming up for him, I won't be telling him that he can't achieve anything with the political structure. I won't be telling him that.
I would love to speak with you again in 2027.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
God will spare our lives.
Joining us. Indeed, he will. We'll go on a break now. When we come back, our next segment, we're going to have Which Way in Nigeria. There's going to be a lot of venting. Fasten your seatbelt.
Ladies and gentlemen, this morning, kindly join me and say a good morning to Vice President Kashim Shettima, the Vice President, Federal Republic of Nigeria. If you remember, one of the headlines from this Nigerian newspapers from the 13th of August on Tuesday, it says on the top right corner, Shettima blames underdevelopment in North on leadership. Oh, are we just knowing? If you remember just last week, in the peak of the End Bad Governance protest, one of the things that created the most fear were the numbers that we saw in northern states. Hundreds, if not thousands of young men moving across the streets and even destroying property, which led to curfews being declared in Kaduna and I believe Kano State as well. The main reason these people were worried about the protests going on in the north is because they are very much aware of how much they failed the people of northern Nigeria. I am from Edo State, but I would speak for my northern brothers and sisters because even if they may find it difficult and they may not say it themselves for different reasons, they find it somehow hard to question their leaders. Even if they choose to stay silent, we all know that these people deserve better in those regions. And their leaders, according to the Vice President, have truly failed them. This is a region in Nigeria that has had undoubtedly more representation in Aso Rock since 1960. Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, General Yakubu Gowon, General Murtala Mohammed, Shehu Shagari, General Muhammadu Buhari, General Ibrahim Babangida, General Sani Abacha, Abdul Salami Abubakar, if you remember, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, and then President Muhammadu Buhari again for the second time. Keep in mind also that while we had these presidents from, the times that we had presidents from southern Nigeria, we always had northern vice presidents. If you remember, Atiku Abubakar and Namadi Sambu were the most recent. And yet, northern Nigeria still has the most staggering figures of poverty. Northern Nigeria still has the highest levels of out-of-school children. Again, the reason that they are worried about the protests in the north is because you know that you have failed them and failed them more than the other regions. Leadership and members who have represented people from the north have truly failed them. And that includes, with all due respect, our dear Vice President Kashim Shettima, who was governor of Borno State from 2011 to 2019, Senator Borno Central from 2019 to 2023. So if he is suddenly talking about those who failed the North in their leadership, he is included. Borno State still ranks one of the highest in poverty and terror attacks. Not long ago, the BBC aired a documentary just a few weeks ago that told about 4.4 million children who are malnourished in northern Nigeria, including in Katsina State, where our former president for 8 years, Muhammadu Buhari, hails from. Some people will say that the failure of leadership in northern Nigeria is maybe even intentional. The weaponization of poverty and religion, the Almajiri system, the use of these millions of vulnerable children to boost election figures. These are tales that we've heard for so long. It is one of the biggest shames of our country and for all northern leaders. I mean, how do you look at yourselves every day? I mean, I see these pictures, I see these faces in the National Assembly, I see them everywhere. Faces of northern leaders. How do you look at yourselves every day, seeing the level of poverty around the states that you've governed and you've led for decades? How do you call yourself a leader and your region is plagued with that level of poverty and out-of-school children, malnourished children, children in IDP camps? What did the millions of people in northern Nigeria do to deserve such failure of leadership, as stated by our dear Vice President Kashim Shettima? To the leaders in northern Nigeria, the worry that you had when you saw those numbers protesting in the north, they're a result of the monsters that you've made over time. and the monsters that you have been breeding are slowly waking up. Good morning, Nigerians.
The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC, has directed distribution companies to establish direct contact with power generation companies, the GENCOs, bypassing the Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading Company, that's NBET. And this move aims to phase out electricity subsidies and transition to a cost-reflective tariff system. DISCOs will now be responsible for fulfilling federal government contracts with GENCOs, including costly agreements.
The federal government's subsidy of 1.7 trillion naira to DISCOs in 2024 is deemed unsustainable, prompting the transition to a more cost-reflective approach. The new arrangement may lead to increased financial burdens on both DISCOs and end users as more customers are excluded from subsidies and tariffs. Joining us is lawyer and executive coordinator, NEPA Wahala NG, Emeka Ojoko. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. Let's first of all start with, the little details, in this move by the federal government, and what this means for the end user.
Okay. To give a little bit of a background, prior to this time, NBET was a single buyer from the DISCOs, from the GENCOs, right? When it was established under the now defunct EPS, the Electric Power Sector Reform Act, NBET was set up to act as a middleman between the GENCOs and the DISCOs on a take or pay basis. Now, take or pay basically means that that NBET guaranteed to the DISCOs that a minimum level of power that will be purchased by NBET and then sold to the DISCOs, and then when the DISCOs pay, NBET will now remit those monies to the GENCOs. So it gave a firm financial guarantee, to the GENCOs that XYZ amount of power would be paid to them as every month. It was on this basis that the GENCOs were able to raise funds to finance the bidding of those. Now, with what has happened over time is that while NBET has a take or pay model with the GENCOs, with the DISCOs, it did take and pay. Take and pay basically means that the DISCOs pay for what they can afford, right? There are no guarantees minimum amount of power that each DISCO purchases. So whenever there is a shortfall between the amount of power purchased and paid for by the DISCOs and the amount of power purchased and purchased by NBET from the GENCOs, then NBET would have to make up that difference. Now, over time, historically, the GENCOs, the DISCOs have never paid for the full amount of power sold to them by NBET, right? Which has created a situation where they have massive amounts going to billions of dollars that are being owed GENCOs over time. So this arrangement now, the federal government wants to put a stop to it. Okay, so under this order that was just made, NBET is going to maintain its contract with about five of the GENCOs, and then each GENCO will now go to purchase power on a take and pay basis. Yeah. Take and pay basis means that the DISCOs will contract for what they can pay for. There is no minimum guaranteed. So that creates some kind of imbalance, because for the GENCOs now, right, their financing model was based on firm off-take agreements. Now, off-take agreements mean that you guarantee that you will pay for this, you will take this minimum amount of power. If you don't take it, you must pay for it. So if the DISCOs now want to transit to a take and pay, it now creates a potential liquidity problem for the GENCOs. They now have to look for other ways to sell the power that they have available to sell. All right. It means that if it's international customers who can take up that power, if it's single customers who can take up that power, they'll be obliged to sell to them rather than sell to the DISCOs who they are not sure can pay for what they can produce.
So I think my question
potentially
to you
for the end users.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
What does this mean for the end user?
Potentially for the end users is this. You may see one, for the discos to be able to pay or to meet their invoices for power supplied to them by the Gencos, they will need to increase tariffs, or you will see phased decrease of supply to the customers who they cannot be sure will pay for the power. That means that your metered customers will have less and less of supply, while the metered customers will be the ones that the discos will focus on supply power. Those are the two immediate effects that we will see from this order that was passed by NEC.
Okay, does this in any way, because I think the argument really is that it creates some level of stability with the whole power electricity value chain. You know, the disruptions that used to exist before, slight confusion here and there, you know, all of that is now going to be, you know, taken away because there's now a direct relationship between the Gencos and discos. Is this a, you know, an argument that maybe would be favorable?
If all things were equal on the side of the discos, yes. But because of the historical problems the discos had with revenue collection,
yeah,
that will not happen, right? The bulk of their customers are unmetered. So before the discos can be sure that whatever power that they take from the Gencos, they can pay for it, they need to meter all their customers, or at least a good majority of those customers. If they don't, there will be consistent revenue shortfalls, which they will have to make up from either by way of loans or by increasing the tariffs paid by the customers who they are sure will pay for their power, which are their metered customers, otherwise known as the Band A customers.
Yeah.
So what you will see as we transit now will be that there is likely to be a tariff increment across the board for all customers. Now, remember that NEC is giving the different state governments power to regulate their own markets. The numbers are increasing by the day, whether or not those state governments are actually ready to take over the electricity markets. So you find that the government is also trying to shift their burden for paying for the shortfall in revenue, the subsidies. They're trying to shift it to the states, because the states will be the one to set the tariffs for their own states. And where there is any shortfall between payments made by customers and the discos collections, the state governments will be responsible for finding a way to meet that shortfall.
Yeah, it's looking...
So the stability you're talking about, in an ideal situation, yes, but we are not in an ideal situation in Nigeria right now.
I mean, we don't have the ideal situation. So how best, is there any way that we can make the best of what this reality would look like?
The federal government is doing, making some moves along those lines. What we need to do right now is to ensure customers are metered. It's a tall order, but it needs to be done. Now, most of the presidential metering initiative has started out, but it is still a long way from what needs to be done. Okay, 3 million meters is a drop in the bucket. We're talking about this will tell us about across the board. Maybe you have 8 million customers. It's not true. It's not true. We have over 120 million Nigerians in this country and only 8 million on public power supply. It's not true. Their figures are wrong. Meanwhile, the power that's being generated by the Gencos and sent into the system is measured. Okay, it's measured. They know precisely what amount. So when this power moves out and then the returns don't reflect what has been evacuated, who pays for that difference? That's the issue. So we have 8 million customers or 9 or 10 million as they tell us, and maybe 50, 60 million who are actually using that power, and then the revenue that's coming in is only being paid by maybe 2 or 3 million people. That's a major problem in itself. So the government needs to very, very quickly enumerate all customers who are on the grid, meter them, and that's the only way we'll have full metering, that we can have full revenue assurance, and then as the discos collections losses reduce, then we will now see an effect on the price of electricity. But as long as their collections losses are as high as they are, then you will find that you're paying exorbitant prices for electricity.
All right. I mean, Nigerians will definitely, ask more questions as, time passes. The discos and gencos would have to have proper explanations to the average Nigerian as to why, there's possibly going to be a tariff increase again. I understand that there's so much infrastructure deficit with regards to with the discos, and that's one of the reasons that we're having these issues. But thank you very much for joining us. We, of course, will continue to x-ray these issues, and we'll have you join us again pretty soon to speak further. Thanks for your time.
Oh, always a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.
All right. This is where we wrap up, with the news of a possible increment in electricity tariffs once again for those who are on Band A, and, maybe also other bands. It's really
depressing. There's no words. Depressing. I think now is the time for people, as much as you can, start to invest in alternative energy, renewable energy. It's very expensive, but if you can,
cheap.
That's why I said if you can, it's very expensive, but if you can, solar energy, so you can cut down on your bills. Anyway, we'll be back again tomorrow with some news. Hopefully, there'll be better news this time. I am Olive Emodi.
And I will Salgi Ogbon.
Have a good day.